Throwaway because I don't want this tied to my main. I'm a wayward trying to make sense of how I ended up here. I know this sub doesn't sugarcoat things, and that's what I'm looking for. But please do not hurt my feelings too much. I'm not looking for sympathy or absolution. I already know I did serious damage. But I'm trying to understand my own behavior and whether reconciliation is possible at this stage. My husband and I have been together for a long time. We have 2 kids, lots of shared history, shared stress, and shared sacrifices. Over the years, we built a nice life. Somewhere along the way, though, I stopped feeling like myself inside it. The infidelity spans years, which is horrifying to admit, not going to lie. In my head, though, it didn't feel like one long betrayal. It felt fragmented. Conversations here and there. Emotional connections that crossed lines here and there. Few meetups in random places, which ended up in varying degrees of sexual experiences. I never loved these people. I was just lonely, unhappy, and trying to survive emotionally. I wasn't planning to leave my marriage, so it didn't count the same way as affairs do. To me, at least. I know now how warped that thinking was. D-Day was May 2025, right after our child was born. Even typing that makes my chest tighten. My husband found messages and confronted me, calmly, because I had severe postpartum blues. He had a steady, devastated kind of resolve to get the truth out of me. He told me he wanted me out and that he'd figure things out on his own with my own baby. I went into panic mode. Instead of coming clean, I went straight into self-preservation mode. I lied by omission. I reframed events to make myself look less awful. I deleted things I didn't want to explain. I convinced myself that if I could just control what he saw, we could move forward without reopening wounds. Especially during that very difficult time of my life. At the time, I told myself I was protecting our family. I didn't want my child to grow up without a father like I did. Looking back, I was protecting myself. He says I manipulated his reality, that I made him doubt his own memory and instincts. At the time, I truly believed he was spiraling, that trauma and exhaustion were making him paranoid. When he'd confront me with concerns, I felt accused and cornered, and I'd lash out defensively. I told him he was gaslighting me, that he was controlling, that he was emotionally abusive. Saying that now makes me feel sick, but in the moment I believed it, or convinced myself I did, because admitting the truth would have meant facing what I'd done. There's one man in particular that keeps coming up, someone from early in our relationship. My husband reached out to him, and the man confirmed things I denied. I still think parts of his story are exaggerated, or at least filtered through his own perspective. But I can't deny that I kept reconnecting with him over the years, cutting contact, reopening it, telling myself it was meaningless. I've said repeatedly that I never cared about him, and I think that's true in the way people usually mean it. But clearly the connection mattered enough to keep going back to it. Every time my husband brings his name up, I feel this surge of anger and shame. I get defensive instantly. It feels like being dragged back into the worst version of myself, and I react by trying to shut it down. I hate that about myself. What's made everything worse is that my husband keeps uncovering new information. Old financial statements, charges I can't fully explain, nor even remember at this point. A hotel charge from years ago that I genuinely don't remember clearly. I know I don't remember is convenient, but the truth is I compartmentalized so intensely back then that entire stretches of my life feel foggy. There were a lot of things I was hiding at that time, so naturally I can't remember all that years later. I was overwhelmed, emotionally disconnected, juggling kid, work, and escapism. Every new discovery resets the clock for him. For me, it feels like being exposed all over again. I want to scream that it was a lifetime ago, that we should focus on the present, that continuing to dig only causes more pain. He says the past never stopped happening because the story kept changing. I don't have a good argument against that. Where I feel especially stuck now is intimacy, sex, desire. He says he doesn't feel wanted, that he feels like he was replaced over and over. From my side, intimacy feels heavy with expectation and guilt. If I initiate, I worry he'll think I'm just trying to patch things over. If I don't, he feels rejected. If he brings it up, I feel like I'm failing another test I didn't study for. Sometimes when he tries to talk about it, I deflect with humor or shut down entirely. Not because I don't care, but because I don't know how to handle his pain without being consumed by my own shame. It feels like everything I do is wrong, so I default to doing nothing. I've said that I don't want to change who I am. What I meant, poorly, is that I don't know how to transform into a safe, trustworthy partner overnight. I'm terrified that no matter how much effort I make, it will never be enough. That I'll always be under suspicion, always one uncovered detail away from being the villain again. Sometimes I wonder if staying together is even fair to him. Other times, I worry that thought is just another way to avoid doing the work. So I'm asking the other waywards here. How did you stop reacting defensively when your partner was triggered? Update. The last few months before everything finally fully imploded were incredibly stressful. I was overwhelmed almost constantly, anxious, dissociated, stuck in my own head with so much noise that I couldn't sort out what I was actually feeling versus what I was avoiding. Instead of talking to my husband honestly about how bad I was doing, I shut down. Again. I told myself I needed space to get clarity, and I moved back in with my parents. I framed it as something temporary, something responsible. In reality, I was running. I was exhausted by accountability, by conflict, by facing the damage I'd already caused, and I wanted relief. While I was there, I took a trip. And during that trip, I had a physical affair with someone I had known for a while. Writing that sentence makes me feel hollow. Looking back, I can see that my marriage was already at a breaking point. We were both hurting. Trust was fractured. Intimacy was strained. But instead of having an honest, terrifying conversation about where we were and what I felt incapable of giving, I chose the most destructive exit possible. Now he's filing for divorce. I confessed to my husband by text. I don't know why I did it that way, except that I was afraid to hear his voice and afraid of what I'd see on his face. He was in shock. I could feel it even through the silence. He later told me he booked a lawyer within 20 minutes of that text. What makes this even harder is my current living situation. I'm still at my parents' house and they are not supportive, not even a little. They've never liked the man I slept with during the trip. According to them, he has always been bad news. They've said outright that they hate him and that I should have watched out because he had been sniffing after me for so long. They don't know about the other affairs, but even without that information, they are blaming me, saying I've wrecked our lives. I feel trapped in a cage of my own making, isolated from the person I hurt, surrounded by people who are reinforcing accountability that I've managed to avoid for so long. I'm struggling badly. I can't forgive myself for what I've done to my husband, not just the affair, but the years of manipulation, minimization, and emotional cowardice that led here. I'm carrying shame, grief, fear, and some very dark thoughts, and I don't know what the right next step is. I know there may not be a solution that fixes this. I know reconciliation may not be possible at this stage, but I don't want to keep running. I don't want to keep choosing the easy, harmful path just because it numbs me temporarily. If anyone here has been in a place where the weight of what you've done feels unbearable, how did you stop self-destructing long enough to actually face it?